Hey everyone, let me know if you can hear me and I'll get started in a second, please. Good morning. Just send me a sign from the great beyond. What's that? I can't read. Hi, Allie. Okay, I'm having trouble reading this. Morning. You can read, you can hear me? Obviously you can't see me because I'm hiding behind my camera trying to check my frame. But you can hear me okay? Just let me know. No? Can't hear me? Just let me know if you can hear me. I'd appreciate it, and I'll get started. Ruth, if you're there, can you hear me okay? We can hear you. Okay, excellent. Okay, you may want a block or even, excuse me, something like a Pilates ball or a pillow. Where's my dog? Do you want to come in or do you want to stay out? It's up to you. Otherwise she'll whine the whole time. And we're going to play with some standing postures and prepare for them. And we're going to do the preparation on our back, so get comfortable, lying down on your mat or in your space. And just have your blocks and maybe, as always, a blanket nearby, just so that when we do things on our knees, if you need a little extra padding, you feel a little more cushion there. So lying down on your back, I'm gonna stay standing up or kneeling for a second. I want you to just settle into the back line of your body. So let your pelvis drop, let your back ribs drop, let your head drop. Really, really just let your shoulders drop. So in order to maybe aid in that letting go, do a little rocking from side to side. Take your knees from side to side. Really slow and gentle, because this can be quite a lot of twisting in the lower back. If you're not, if you haven't been moving around much yet, it might feel like a lot. And then let your arms drop by your sides. And turn your right palm down, and then your left palm down. And then take your head to look to your left palm as you turn your right palm down. And then your head to look to your right palm as you turn your left palm down. And then leave your hands now on your rib cage, but your shoulders nice and grounded. And just begin to breathe in and out through your nostrils if you can. With your pelvis nice and heavy, backs of your ribs nice and in contact with the ground. And just be aware of how your breathing feels right now. Does it feel like it's already stuck up in your chest? Or are you feeling an expansion not just in your ribs, but also in your belly? And can you get those ribs moving as well? So you can take your hands to your belly and make sure there's a little bit of rising and falling. And then your hands to the sides of your ribs and a little bit of rising and falling. Not too much movement in the collarbones, not too much movement in the shoulders. We really want that diaphragmatic breathing kicking in. So it doesn't have to be big, huge, over-exaggerated breaths. We just want a nice, slow, even breath. Let's all take one more inhale. Feel the sides of our bodies, our rib cages expand, circumference. I can't say that word. The circumference of your rib cage. You want to feel the expansions of it. And then the same thing, you want to feel a contraction, like a barrel that's swelling because it's filling, and then allowing for a little bit of a receding. And then let's get a little bit of movement in our pelvis. So with your hands maybe if you're not familiar too much with moving intentionally and you're just your pelvis, with your hands and your two front hip bones, so that's those two bony protrusions right at the lowest part of your torso there before you meet your hip crease. You want to begin to tuck and untuck. So you're feeling a tugging on your head, hopefully, as you send your tail down for an anterior pelvic tilt, which would mean there's a lot of room now between you and the floor in your lumbar curve. And then as you send your tail up for a posterior pelvic tilt, you might experience a little bit of head movement, the chin lifts, and the lower back flattens. So the chin drops as you go into anterior tilt, and it lifts as you go into posterior tilt. If you want to really experience this a little bit more throughout the whole frame, you can take your arms up now and just allow for that nice tugging. And then let's take our arms down into our sides, nice and relaxed. Take your breath. And then slowly begin to push the floor away from you. Start to use your hamstrings as you pull your feet towards you. Send your feet into the floor and just lift your pelvis a little bit. We're not looking for a ton of hip extension. We're certainly not looking for a back bend. We just want to elevate up off the floor. So free and clear your butt from the floor so that now you can kind of walk in place and get some lateral flexion happening. So you're sort of sending your hips left and right, swaying. So we're just freeing the pelvis a little bit. Knee forward, opposite knee forward. So you're kind of hiking your hips in place here. And then level that, and let's dip our hips. Right hip drops towards the floor, and then we bring it back up. Left hip drops towards the floor, and then we bring it back up. So you're sort of spilling water off one edge of your pelvis, and then recovering a level water line, and then spilling water off the other edge. Notice how, if you can really wake up the contact of your feet, it sort of aids in this movement, feeling a little bit more grounded, a little bit more connected. And then let's level that pelvis, tuck it up one more time, and find, now we're looking for hip extension, a long line between our knees and our ribs. So we're getting up onto the backs of our rib cage, the upper ribs I should say, and the shoulder blades. We're not pressing into that head. And then we're going to slowly lay our rib cage down, back of our waist, low back, and then finally the tail moves back into a more neutral position. Let's do that again. Let's roll and wave up into some hip extension, not thinking about a back bend. We're just finding a nice long spine, lots of containment through the front, the sides, and the back of the torso, and then finding that mobility, that controlled wave all the way down. 2 more times on your own, rolling up and rolling down. Keeping the breath moving. Last one. And then we'll all float our legs up, turn those feet on, so either point or flex. So you feel a lot of engagement now through your legs. We'll take both hands to our thighs. Once again, we're not looking to press our low back into the floor. We just want to keep our neutral curves now. So we're not pressing the back of our neck, we're not pressing our low back, we're not arching our ribs. Breathe into the shape. And as you exhale, start to ramp up the connection between your hands and your thighs. Push, hands against thighs, thighs against hands. Stay there, find a good shaking. Still looking for that expansion in the side body. Maybe you can ramp up that pressing even more. Another 3, 2, 1. You're going to let go of the right hand and the right leg and begin to tap. Tap the floor behind your head. Tap the floor in front of your hip. Any amount of lowering, if you can maintain the connection between your rib cage and your pelvis and that pressing and stability of that other leg that other hip, I should say, and that other shoulder. Extend away from center, bring it back to center. One more time like this. And then plant right hand against right thigh, press, float those left limbs any amount above the floor, even if they don't make it all the way down. I'm looking for you to find that sense of contraction and containment and stability through the center of your body against the movement of your limbs. A few more like this, lots of energy through all four limbs, pushing with the right side. Last one. And then come on back in, grab a hold of the tops of your shins and just circle. So you're pulling your legs apart and then bringing them back together, using at first a little bit of energy of your arms, circling your kneecaps on the ceiling, and then see if you can maintain. I'm just going to change my angle. I feel like it's getting a little crotchish. See if you can maintain that circling without using your arms now. So instead of using my hands, can I control that circling without it becoming that spinal movement? So can the pelvis stay pretty quiet and heavy and stable on the ground? And can I find some mobility, some movement in a controlled manner in my hip socket? The movement of my legs occurring right in that hip socket. If this is smaller, great. We're looking to not move into pain. We don't want any sharp pain. We just want to find some movement. There might be knocking sounds. As long as there's no pain, that's okay. Good. Okay. Stretch the legs out. Shake them out. And then let's begin to, with a little bit of control, think about sort of painting the ceiling as you bend and straighten, painting the wall in front of you with the soles of your feet and the tops of your feet as you bend and straighten your knees. So pointing as you stretch up and flexing as you pull down. Pick a color and paint a big bold stripe from the ceiling to the floor with your feet. And then reverse that. So even. And then leave your legs straight, reaching for the ceiling. If you need to bend them because your hamstrings are feeling a little less cooperative this morning, that's fine. We're just isolating a little ankle love here. Really scooping out nice, strong circles. Let's do 3 in each direction on both sides. Switching when you're done. Good. And then plant both feet. Take your arms out nice and wide. Let your knees fall to the right. Stretch that left arm up and roll to your right side. Let your left arm pass your right fingertips. So you're feeling a nice sense of stretching and rotating in the upper spine. And then sweep that left arm all along your right arm through your torso, bringing you back to center. Let your knees fall to the left. Stretch that right arm up and over. Reach further than your left fingertips. You can even look to the back of your mat if you like. That sensation of sort of extra twisting. And then come on back. One more time, and then this time we're going to stay on our left side. We're going to gather our thighs to stack, our knees and our shins to stack. We're in a bit of a 90-degree angle here at the hip and at the knee. And you can just lay down on your side. So from here, at first, we're just going to find that circling of the hip again. So bring a strong either point or flex to your foot. Try and really imprint this right leg and this right whole side of your body on the floor if you can, and then squeeze the crap out of an imaginary something at the back of your knee. Let's lift that left leg, bring it up towards our chest, and then open it towards the ceiling. Try and keep your pelvis stable.
And then scoop and rotate that knee back behind you. So you're moving into that hip extension that you found earlier. Try and leave this right leg heavy on the floor. You may want to take your left hand down and really push against the floor, and then bring that leg back to stack. Elevate it again, and then kick that heel back. When you get feeling your hamstrings, I'm certainly fighting to keep that pelvis stable, and then bring it back to stack. Open, kick back, rotate the knees up, and then bring it through. Instead of dropping it down entirely, we're going to leave it stacked on top of that knee, and just find a little external rotation, so the knee is up, the foot is down, and then internal rotation, foot is up, knee is down. Continue like that and just breathe. Feeling like you have a rotisserie stick between your knee and your hip, and you're just finding that rotation. Good. One last time. One last time. Okay, let's leave that down and prop ourselves up now. So with your elbow and your arm firmly underneath your shoulder, instead of just hanging out and dumping into your shoulder, find a good solid, stable shoulder joint. Think about sort of tucking your shoulder blade down into your back pocket. Find that sense of support from all sides of your spine, and really drive your legs into the floor, plank. And then from there, become aware of your outer hip on the bottom side, and begin to press it into the floor and lift up. So over the side and pull back. And then come on back to a table, and let's roll through our spine, through a cat, and we'll hold cat and breathe. Feel that breath really stretching into the outer edges of your skin here in the back line and the side body. And then hold your cat, and on your next inhale, begin to lift your tail. And from that pelvic action, roll through your spine until your ears reach towards the ceiling, and you're breathing in your cow. And then hold that cow, and on your exhale, tuck, find that posterior tilt, and let it roll through your spine like a wave, back to angry cat. Take a breath, exhale it out. See if you can really push the floor away even more and round even more. And then last time, inhaling through to cow. So we're going to start down. Oh crap, same side for me. Okay, now it's my right leg that's on top. So I'm going to stack my shoulders, stack my hips. Most importantly, I'm not rolling back or forward. I'm going to squeeze an imaginary lemon on the back of my knee. I'm going to flex through my foot. I'm going to lift just enough to clear, and then I'm going to bring that thigh towards me, towards the ceiling. Rotate it back and bring it through. And then I reverse. I kick back. I open the knee. I bring it close as I can towards my elbow. And then forward and back down. One more time like that. Flexion, abduction. What's happening in the bottom leg, what's happening in the pelvis can keep everything really strong and grounded. Extension, and then back through. Last one like this. Hip extension, external rotation, back to flexion, and adduction. So all these things make for healthy hips and healthy movements and strong and healthy transitions and standing postures. All the things in life as well as on your mat. And then from there we're going to lift that knee and then just find that rotisserie stick and bring it from our hip to our knee and just look for that internal rotation here and external rotation here. So you want to feel like that foot is lifting because of that spit moving in your hip socket. And then same thing, it's dropping because you're really bringing out rotation at the hip. One more time. Good, okay. And then prop yourself up, keep your block at the ready if that was useful for you. You want to line up, elbow, shoulder, hip, knees, and just make sure you're not sort of moving into some sort of spinal extension. Instead, you want to feel really lifted and really contained through the core. Find some rotation. Just find that movement of your upper spine without it becoming a movement of the lumbar spine or the pelvis. Okay, and then we're going to lift up into a half plank and see if we can, maybe you want to use your block here for this. Find that rotation again. So if the arm is making it too exaggerated, you can just lock that arm down on your rib cage. Think about bringing your ribs under and opening them up again. And then from there, you're going to probably want to lose your block. Start to lift that leg. So now we're pretty stable through the trunk. We're just working on that hip abduction, a little bit of external rotation. And then if you like, for the finale, flying squirrel. Dropping down and then rebounding back up. Really working that bottom outer hip, as well as all this goodness for the core. Make sure your shoulder's not dumping or scrunching into your ear. Hold the last one. And then slowly release, come back down.
Let's pull back into an extended child's pose.
Let your head drop towards the floor. Let your arms rest along the mat and just sway your hips from side to side a little bit.
Recover your breath if you need to. Do whatever you need to do. And then from there, with your hips back in child's pose, we're going to start rolling forward from that pelvis. So with your hands really gripping the mat in front of you, start to lift your hips and then begin to tuck. Come forward all the way onto your belly. So you just roll through your spine. And then let's send our elbows to the ceiling. Slide our shoulder blades back and down. And just float our wrists. Float our hands. Drive that pubic bone into the floor. Could you open and lift your collarbones just a little bit more away from the floor? And then push the floor away from you. Keep your elbows bent. Keep your shoulders away from your ears. Find any amount of cobra, any amount of back extension with support of those legs and those glutes. And then lower back down, push the floor away from you. Send your hips back into child's pose. Let's do it again. Find the rhythm of your breath and flow on it. Tucking your tail, rolling to your thighs, to your pubic bone, to your belly. Float the hands. Find a little bit of shoulder extension and strength there. And then push up into any amount of spinal extension. And then push the floor away from you. Back into rounding, flexing, and rooting your hips. 2 more times like that, all on the rhythm of your breath. So slow and as smooth as feels good to you. I'm going to grab some coffee. time maybe. And then the next time you push back from your child's pose, let's start thinking about moving back into downward dog. So from your child's pose, start to tuck your toes and push into your hands so much that your knees lift up off the floor. And then lift your hips and boom, you're in a downward dog. Take a moment. Push the floor away from you and just see if you can find a little bit of movement in your shoulder blades here. A little retraction, a little depression and elevation. And then really keep what amount of elevation you require to really push the floor away from you strongly and keep your elbows nice and straight. Send your hips up to the ceiling, bend your knees if you need to, and find a lot of length through that spine. Find your breath here. And then slowly, maybe bend your knees more and begin to move through your pelvis. Find that tugging, that tucking. And see how, as you tuck your tail underneath you, it sort of sends you forward onto your hands and then you push back. Tug yourself forward onto your hands and then push yourself back. Tug yourself forward onto your hands, sort of teasing yourself forward into plank. The next time you come forward, just as you begin to hit your plank, start to take yourself down onto your thighs and maybe move into an upward dog or remaining, if cobra feels good, remaining in your cobra, and then pushing the floor away. Hit that plank for a sec. So find a nice long spine. You're going to want to think about really tucking that tail, pulling your hands and your toes towards each other, and then hinging at the hips, coming back in a downward dog. Try that again. Try that tug of the tail. Send yourself forward to plank, and then roll yourself through into extension. So your shoulders stay pretty much nice and stable and strong, and your arms stay straight if you're moving into upward dog, or they bend whatever amount you need without swallowing your head with your shoulders to move into cobra. Try that one more time. And then we'll kind of add on a little bit of complexity. So I'm going to meet you back in downward dog. Okay, let's all get back into our downward dog if we're not there. And tuck ourselves forward and find that plank. Now, push the floor away from you in plank. Think about a long line from your ears to your heels. And then just keep that line. The only thing that bends are your knees. Just hovering to tap the floor and then straighten again. Keep pulling your hands to your toes to your hands, and just bend your knees any amount. Similar to the work we were doing on our back in dead bug. We're not looking to shift the pelvis. We're just looking to bend the knees. One more. This time we're going to hold it. Pull your knees towards your hands and your hands towards your knees. And your toes, of course, are engaged in this action of pulling. And then lift back up into downward dog. Walk your hands to your feet and hang. Do anything that feels good here. Maybe swaying and tick-tocking from side to side. And then leaving those clasped elbows, we're going to grab our upper arms. Leaving those clasped elbows heavy, begin to find that roll from the pelvis. Head stays heavy until you are stacked at the top of your mat. Sweep your arms up. Exhale. This is handy. Exhale, roll all the way back down. Hang over your legs. Tuck your hands underneath your feet, any amount. Walk your toes up into your wrists, and then find a little spiraling of the eyes of your elbows, the inner eye of your elbow, the soft, juicy, come for a blood test part is spinning forward as you begin to let your head hang heavier and rock your weight just a little bit into those wrists, getting a little stretch as you begin to pull yourself forward and down. One more breath here.
And then release your hands. Come all the way up through a flat back. Exhale. I'm just going to step off here. Release your hands back into a prayer. Inhale, sweep up. Exhale, fold. We're going to do some half sun salutes. Fold over your legs. Come on up halfway. So think about what's happening with your pelvis. Want to find that anterior tilt. Exhale, fold all the way down, and then find that anterior tilt to hinge you back up. Arms sweep. Exhale, fold. 2 more times like this. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, down. Inhale, rise from the strength of the back of the legs and the glutes and the support of all those abdominal muscles. Last time, all the way down. The sides, the backs, the front muscles. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, down. Strong spine. Inhale, all the way up. Exhale, down. Okay, from here, we're just going to move into one more spinal roll, just because it feels so good. And roll yourself all the way down and walk to your downward dog. Head out your feet. And then let's think about that hip car action, that circling that we've been doing, those controlled movements of the hip. Let's fold the right leg, send the right knee up, and then externally rotate and sweep that knee around to bring it to replace the right hand. We'll come down on the left knee. For a moment, just find a little tuck, a little tilt, and then we're going to lean forward and get a good stretch in the back of that right ankle. So here's where your blanket might help your left knee. You want to keep your right heel down, and we're finding a deep knee flexion. And then with a lot of weight on this right foot, you want to start to feel like you're almost able to make those right toes, that right heel mount a little lighter. And then gas pedal and press the floor away from you as you walk your hands and your hips back and stretch the toes up towards the ceiling. Let's do it again. Let's work the ankle and the knee. Send the hips forward, a little tap. Keep that back heel down, that front heel down. And then gas pedal and push the floor away from you. One more time like this. You may or may not want to use your hands. You may even want to add more load by bringing your arms forward to really feel that dorsiflexion working. As you now lift those toes any amount, and then push the floor away from you and send your hips back. Let's sweep forward and come into a half lunge here. Tucking the toes, finding a little bit of opening through that psoas, and then take it over to the right. Let the right arm drop, the left arm reaches. We're still thinking about that pelvis tucking, finding more length through the low back. And then we're gonna come on back up to center and fold over that front leg. This time, rather than stretching our hips back, we're gonna spin so that the back toes are behind that left knee, and we're gonna sit back. And then come forward and spin and pull back. So we're moving between an orientation of the pelvis facing straight to the front edge of our mat, and then opening up like we do for all those side angle postures. And let's just play a little bit. You can use your hands, or you can decide you don't need your hands, and you can really play with using your feet and the hamstrings to facilitate this movement. It's a bit of a spiraling. Doesn't have to necessarily look like mine. I just want you to make that transition from hips more closed to open. Closed to open. Think about your pelvis. Think about the rotation of the femur bone. And then the next time you're back, let's stay back, send the toes up, sit back, and just walk our hands forward. We'll offload from that back foot and then pull back a couple times. Toes up, toes down. turn, square off to the front of the mat. Let those back toes reach back and come on up for a high lunge. So it's a bit of a high runner's lunge. We're really pulling the front and the back of the mat towards each other. And then we'll plant both hands, step back, downward dog. Root the right leg, bend the left knee, and circle it around slowly. Plant the left foot where the left hand was. Come down onto the right knee, sort of more above the front of the knee. And then tuck your tail, reach up. And then take it over to the side a little bit. Just finding a little bit more stretch through those hip flexors. And then coming back to center, planting both hands, maybe sliding that knee forward, the back knee forward a little bit, making sure your front heel is staying down. Deep bending in the knee, so you come back with that weight as much as you need to. Again, blocks perhaps could be handy on either side, just to take some of the load off, but still get the action, still get the work. Okay, so you do you. And then from there, begin to get a little lighter. You want to feel a little cramping on the front of that ankle and the front of that tibia. And then push yourself back so you're feeling a stretch on the back side of that front leg. Continue like this. Maybe the arms reach forward to emphasize this stretch. And then start to ramp up away from the floor with those toes with the top of that foot. Push yourself back. So with or without the aid of the hands, yeah? And then we're going to start to make that transition. The next time I offload this back hip, I spin and sit back. And then I spin and square off. Okay, so play with that transition of weight on the front foot, weight on the back. And again, you can use the hands or not. We're basically coming into sort of this low lunge and then this low half squat. This side, as you can tell, is my less controlled side, my less engaged side. The next time you come back, face the long edge of your mat, straighten out that extended left leg as much as you can, and then walk your hands forward. We're going to pull our hips back and rock our hips forward. So when you pull back, could you take the toes up this time? And then when you come forward, take the toes down. And just play with a little bit of option there. Maybe leaving the toes up the whole time. So the questions are more to see, like, do you have variety available to you? Do you have options? Or is that femur kind of stuck at certain angles? One more time. And then we'll come back, swivel forward, and come up for a high lunge. Whoa, I am not stable this morning. That's okay. We'll just breathe into it. And then come on back down. Downward dog. Maybe roll through your vinyasa if you like. Into any amount of a back bend, an active one of course. Plank, downward dog, or just hang out in your downward dog. And then let's walk our hands back to our feet and either roll up or sweep up. And then release. Okay, so from there, we're going to work some single leg stuff. So let's come on to the left foot to start. Hopefully you're able to see this. And I'm just going to think about all that sort of circling of my knee and my ankle that I was doing before, but this time I'm going to do it with some load. So I'm on my left foot, but my right toes are a bit of a kickstand. And I'm just circling my knee around my ankle. Trying not to grip too much with my toes, trying to leave them spread out. Now we don't want to move into pain. Just sort of circling and scooping around in that knee a little bit. You're getting some movement in the ankle as well. There's a good crack. And then let's come back to what feels like a good centered position. If you notice, my toes are a little out to the left. I'm in a small amount of external rotation starting from the ground up. So my knee and my hip are going to orient the same amount of rotation. And then from there, my right toes can still be on the ground. I'm going to drop my hip and lift my hip. So like we were doing when we were floating on our backs there, just finding the movement of the pelvis. So I don't know if you noticed, but sometimes when you're standing and you've got more weight on one leg, you kind of dump into that hip and your pelvis is crooked. Could you instead level it out and find a lot of work already on the outer hip to keep you solid in that left hip, nice and stable. And then let's see if we could maybe lift the right foot up off the floor and open and close. So it's similar to what we were doing before in different orientations. We're externally rotating, but from the work of this standing hip. Now this knee is opening out. This hip is angling out. Squeeze and open, yeah? Okay, I'm probably going to have to walk myself more to the middle of the mat to show this. Squeeze and open. And then begin to play. So similar to what we were doing before, internal and external rotation now of that floating right leg from the hip. As I externally rotate, sort of like a bit of a bastardization of our flying squirrel work and our hip cars. And then you could see how maybe that could turn into a warrior three. My pelvis is square to the front of my mat, and I got my nice hip hinge, and I come forward any amount. And then similar to like what we did before, could you then open up and step back? So now we're back on our back hip, like we were just doing in our low lunge. And then shift your weight forward into your front foot, reorient your pelvis, revisit your warrior three. And then plant and open that right hip, that right foot, a skandasana, which is basically a half squat. And then rotate, warrior three. So let's just sort of play with maybe switching in midair and pulling back, shifting and switching in midair to, if you feel like you need it, foot on the floor, foot opens up. So this doesn't have to be balletic. This doesn't have to feel like a performance. I want you to feel the movement of the pelvis, the mobility of the hips, the stability of the center line of the body, allowing for these transitions to happen, being dynamic and responsive. The next time you're in warrior three, just hold it if you like. Leg can be long, arms can be anywhere you like, and then come on back up. Shake it out. Now let's do just a nice utkatasana to flush things out. Send your hips back, your knees forward, toes and knees lining up, and then stand back up. So let's do three. Feeling those ankles working. Last one. We're going to hold it down for a sec. And then stand up on our right side. Same thing. Kickstand the left foot. Knee rotations. I don't know if you can hear my cracking. Other direction. And then find what feels like a stable position for your knee. Line up through the midline of that foot and stand up. You want to keep the knee not locked out, right? It's flexive, it's bending. It's able to adjust when you need it to. And then with that left foot, either adjust on the toes or maybe somewhere on your right leg, find your hip lists. So you want to make sure that you're squeezing things in a little bit. You're not dumping into the outer hip. You've got a sense of centration in that pelvis and that hip socket. And then externally rotate from that standing leg. So your pelvis is facing forward, and then it's opening out on an angle. And then you know what to do. See if we can play with that internal and external rotation of the floating leg. If you need to be hanging onto a wall to explore this, please go ahead. Set yourself up for a little fun here. Doesn't have to be a balancing exercise. You can just look at it as more of a mobility exercise. Take out the balance element. Okay, let's open out and step back and offload into that back hip for a skandasana. And then come forward and play with a little flirtation with 3. And then open out, skandasana, rotate, 3. Take it and make it your own. Maybe hands, maybe crawl your way forward. Maybe blocks, right? And you're just focusing on that pelvis, bringing the blocks with you to set yourself up. Crawling with the blocks. If you feel better being closer to the ground. And then let's hang out in a warrior 3, your version of it, thinking about a strong line between the back foot and the top of the head. Do what you like with the arms. Find the breath, not the breasts. They're somewhere too. And then stand back up. Okay, blocks out of the way for a sec. Shake it out. Do whatever you gotta do. Oh boy, God, that hour is so short. Okay, let's do some more Utkatasans. So, feet angling, and as far apart as you need so that your knees and your toes are tracking. Sit back in your hips just as much as you're bending your knees, and then stand back up. Arms do what feels right for you so that your sternum can be lifted and you can have a tall spine. You're not collapsing. So maybe that means you don't come down so far. And then we're going to stay and bring our weight onto our right foot and just take that left foot out to the left and then shift our weight forward. Lift that right leg and then come back to the right foot. Lift the left leg and stand down into it. Lift the right leg, take it out as far as we can, shift over, lift the left leg, come back to the left leg, lift the right leg, and stand down into it without coming up. Again, left leg steps, shift your weight, right leg lifts, shift your weight, left leg comes in with control. Last time, right leg, offload onto the right hip, left leg lifts, any amount, offload onto the left leg, right leg comes back in, come down into your lowest Utkatasana that you can, and then stand up onto the right leg. We're going to kind of put everything together and just start imagining that we're kind of running in place on this right leg. Kicking, doing our best to stay stable. Maybe even staying low and just working the arms and then adding in the legs. Noting that little bit of rotation that's happening in the trunk to get this running pattern. And then let's step the left leg back, move into a high lunge. And then sweep back into our skandasana, this time getting as low as you can, maybe with or without the hands. And then coming back forward, let's take the left knee down, sweep up and open up into a twist. So we've got the left hand down, the right arm reaching for the ceiling, spiraling through the top of the head. Do you want to take that left knee off? Go right ahead. Take a good breath here. And then plant both hands. Pull the hips back. Toes of the front foot look to the ceiling. And then we'll land in that front foot. Step the left leg up to meet the right and hang over our legs. Come on back up into your Utkatasana. Offload onto your left leg. Get a little buoyant. Begin to kick and hinge. So you're just sort of playing with kind of Charleston-ish maybe even. Like it's helpful to anybody other than, 3 people watching.
And then from there, maybe getting low and getting into that running pattern, as slow or as fast as you want to maintain and support with the breath. Woo. Really working those hips, those knees. Try not to grip with the toes here. And then send the right leg back, high lunge. And then sweep yourself back into a skandasana, toes looking towards the ceiling. Hands can be down, they could even be on either side of you. And then come on back, high lunge. And then open and rotate, take the right hand down. Maybe the knees down. Look up to that left arm or back, knees floating. And then sweep to look at that front foot, offload that back foot, and bring it back. As many steps as you need to step back and forward fold. Looking forward, maybe you want your blocks on either side of you. We're going to heel toe and open up our stance a little bit and begin to sit down into a deep squat for a moment. Wedge your elbows against your knees and your knees against your elbows. If your heels are unable to make the floor, you have the option of rolling your blanket up and giving yourself a pair of heels to bring the floor to you, or just bringing a block underneath your butt, either at its lowest height or its middle height, I would recommend. And we'll just kind of open the knees a little bit, just floating them off of those elbows, and then squeeze the knees in towards the elbows. See if as you do this, if you can find more length for your spine, really squeezing elbows and knees against each other. And then release that. Let's take a hold of the right shin and open the torso and look up to that right arm, and then close back off. 2 more times. Rotate. We're trying to keep the pelvis quiet and find that rotation just in the rib cage, spine. And then sweep that right arm to the left shin and just pull back. Think cow for a moment. No, think cat for a moment. And then same thing, right hand clasps left shin. We open up and rotate. Exhale to close. Pull your chest towards the wall and the ceiling. Exhale to release. Last one. Spiraling through the spine. And then clasp both shins round and pull your heart back to the wall behind you. And then slowly release. Take your block out of the way. Take your hands back behind you and carefully come back down. From there, walk your feet to about your outer hips width distance. And we're going to begin to roll down. So we've got that little tugging. We're just sort of teasing ourselves down towards the mat. It's that same thing we were doing on our backs, where you're tucking your tail and finding your tipping point and then coming back up. 2 more times like that. Until you finally lower all the way down with as much control as you can. And then cross your right ankle onto your left thigh. Clasp behind your left thigh. Send your right knee away from you as your left thigh comes towards you. Get an outer hip stretch here. Breathe into it. That right foot should be strong. Right ankle should be strong so you don't feel collapsing in the knee. 1 more cycle of breath. And then we'll drop that left foot. Come up onto the left foot and just stretch that right leg up to the ceiling. Point and flex with the foot. And then let your hips come down. Right leg comes all the way down. And we're just going to circle that foot a little bit, that ankle I should say, in both directions. And then plant the right foot, extend the left foot, take that ankle onto the thigh and pull in. Stretch the outer left hip. Find your breath. And then plant the right foot.
Send your hips to the ceiling and stretch that left leg. Point and flex. And then slowly lower your hips, slowly lower the leg, and just sort of circle out that foot. So you're releasing in the hip as well as the ankle. And then we're going to bend both the knees. Let them fall out to the right side as we windshield wiper. Kind of emphasizing that top leg, finding that internal rotation now as you extend and reach for the wall behind you with the right arm. So right knee is falling into internal rotation as the right arm finds more length in that sideline. And then same thing on the left. Finding more length. A little bit of a stretch on those quads. Thinking about length through the low back. Maybe one more time like that if that feels good. And then pulling your knees in. Squeeze your thighs together and start to rock from side to side. Elbows nice and wide to catch you. And then as you come onto your right side and then your left side, just start to find a little bit of balance. And then look to the middle of your mat just to mobilize your neck. Round into the tightest little bow you can as you do this. And then come on back to center. Plant your feet. Find those little spinal tugs again. Arms on either side of your ears. Just noting whether or not you might have a little bit more movement. Maybe your head's moving a little bit more freely. Maybe you're feeling a little more movement through the rib cage. And then take your legs up to the ceiling. We'll bend and straighten and paint and shake and do whatever feels good to you.